Howdy, guys. Attorney Walter Hnot. What we're going to be talking about is a particularly difficult topic. And the reason why is that people don't like to talk about people who hate some other group, some other entity. But the reality is that I had a chance to sit down with an extremely wealthy individual, either at $1 billion or around $1 billion in net worth. And the communication that I had with that person was very open, free flow. And I always try to do that. Even when I come into contact with people who are against what I represent, against what I do for a living, which is representing disabled people, I still like to take the opportunity to ask them tough questions and find out what's going on. These are the reasons that that person gave me, and our discussion back and forth as to why the super wealthy are not a big fan of the disabled. This is important for you to understand that not every wealthy person sits in this pot, but these reasons, these political, socioeconomical reasons, hold strong as base fundamentals as to why they're not happy about the amount of disabled and how disabled Americans are. Let's go through them without wasting any time, but please remember to like, subscribe, and leave 5-star reviews. Remember, if you like these videos, if they open your mind and you get to hear about and see new things, please leave a 5-star review. You go to Disability Resolution Florida on Google, just Disability Resolution Florida, and leave a 5-star. Let's get to it. So the first argument that came out when I was discussing this issue with him was that when there's more disabled people in a society, so if you take America as a whole, and there's more disabled people as a society, the higher the price of non-disabled workers, right? What we'll see is that more disabled, those non-disabled workers will increase in value. Because if you take a higher percentage of the population, right, and you make that percentage larger of disabled individuals, then you have fewer individuals that are not disabled. And those fewer individuals are in more demand then to do the work, which means that their value goes up in price, which means the wealthy employers, the big business owners, they have to pay more for those employees because the more disabled there are, the fewer non-disabled there are. So it's an economic problem for them to hire cheap labor. Number two, disabled are good at extracting money from the main source being the government and redistributing it to housing, medical, medication, and low-cost consumer enjoyments. Now, the bottom line is those who are disabled do not buy luxury goods, okay? And that means that the markup capacity of a person in an ownership position is low. What do I mean by that? When you go buy something that is like the non-label, like the no-label, no brand product, you are paying the closest to the actual production cost of that item. But when you are paying for a label product or something luxurious, there's a large markup on it. Those who are wealthy prefer to make a sale that has a large markup on it. And this chunk of disabled individuals on SSI, SSDI, or even the retired tend not to purchase luxury items because they can't afford them, which means that it's just, low consumer cost goods being purchased and no high markup. Number three, the disabled are takers from a system built to milk givers. The givers spend too much money on FICA taxes and not enough time buying things with the money they earn. So another argument that the person made that I thought was interesting was that if they didn't have FICA taxes, right? And I'm just going to admit right here, the person I was speaking with was not a Republican, but not an individual that's in politics, but does funding to Republicans. And so what happened was, as I was discussing this with him, he said, hey, look, here's the bottom line. These FICA taxes take a chunk out of what people earn. And that more of that money of what they earn should go directly to them than the social net. That was the argument that that person made. I lean the other way because, what are you going to do when there's tons of homeless running around because they have nothing to hold them up when they're disabled or retired? But the point is, what he was saying is the givers, the people who are working, they spend too much money on FICA taxes. He thought the FICA taxes should be lower. And he said, and not enough time, because they're spending all this money on FICA taxes, they're having to work more hours, earn more money, pay more taxes. And because of that, those workers don't get to take more of their time and more of their money, spending it on things that they can sell. For example, it could be anything. Could be a motorcycle, could be a vacation, could be a yacht, whatever. Okay. Number 4, the disabled are good at increasing the fertility rate, but it's usually around spouses who are trying to fix someone. And as a result, the relationship creates children that are raised by the disabled parent, which can result in a higher likelihood of disabled children. And I'm reading literally from my notes here. Kids are what they experience, right? So kids become who their parent is. If one parent is always working, they're going to follow what the other parent does. If the work parent is always working, then the kids accept the lifestyle of the disabled parent. This means a low rate of work product per new child born into America. They want high workload, low pay, not low workload, expecting high pay, which is what a lot of new younger Americans are expecting. I thought that this was an interesting argument because what it said to me was that he understood how kids are coming about. People have been fighting. I mean, I've seen people on YouTube arguing this whole pulling around and pulling away of this social fabric, right? Of what makes a good family, what makes a traditional family, a traditional American family. And, the irony is a lot of these people on the very, very extreme right side are making this like, there can't be any trans individuals, there can't be any gay individuals. They're making those types of arguments. And I've always sat back and thought to myself, who cares? Let them live their lives. But what's interesting is that the super far right examines and compares anything different from the classic born on a farm family and says, look, that new thing is not as efficient. That new thing is not as good at creating workers that we can put in a warehouse, put on an assembly line, or put on a reception desk. What I think is interesting about that is that the wealthy are very aware and they're studying essentially what it takes to make a product. And the average person in America doesn't think like that. The average person in America is like, I'm going to work my 9 to 5, then I'm going to go home and do my own thing. It's interesting. It's interesting because the average American wants freedom. Like a trans person wants freedom to do what they want to do, as does the farm family. But how they define freedom is different. But then again, it's not that different. What is freedom? At the end of the day, it's like whatever, it's what you want to do. So what's interesting is that the rich, they look at freedom differently in total. They say, okay, freedom is having lots of money to shape the world around you. So to them, creating that golf course environment where they get to go ahead and exist within it and be a part of it. You guys know I hate golf, but I get a little bit more about why they play golf. It's not to put a ball into a hole. Well, at least for some of them, it's not. For the super rich, it's about just spending your day, your hours on earth in that environment. Because, to me, look, guys, let's be honest here. Basketball, football, tennis, it's a ball. Like, what the are you really going to get that much enjoyment from a ball? Like, is that really going to be like how good? And I get it. Like, you can make millions, potentially billions, if you are good at taking a ball and putting it through a circle, which to me boggles the friggin' mind. You could have the most brilliant minds inventing the future of human civilization, and nobody will watch that shit or give a damn because somebody else was good at taking a ball and putting it through a circle. So, but anyways, that was the idea there, is that they look at essentially how they structure their environment different, and that's how they define freedom. They feel free on that golf course. Other people feel free going to a park, watching Netflix at night with their dog, etc. So it's a different way that they look at it. Number 5, the super wealthy see disabled people in manufacturing countries working, even disabled veterans. So their expectation is that an American disabled can still work even though they receive a benefit. All right, so here's a common theme that I see from a lot of people I've spoken with that go overseas and do production overseas. Overseas, even once you are disabled, you are still to some degree, unless bedbound, expected to go and produce and make something, right? Especially in production based, countries. Sure, you could pull up any other country and say, well, that's not how it is there. I'm talking production based countries. I'm talking about like, South China Sea kind of countries. I'm talking about, countries within the continent of Africa. Those countries, you're still expected to continue to produce to whatever maximum you now have. Whereas in America, for a long time, let's call like it is 10 years, 15 years, 20 years back, a lot of people were getting on disability benefits where people would look at them and go, I don't know. And then we had the argument of, well, you can't see my disability. And then you'd look at the medical records and go, but still, how severe are you? And then you'd also have the very, very severe ones. So from their perspective, they're expecting, as, I guess, keepers, warlords, or whatever, keepers of the dominion of employers and employees working. What their argument is that even if disabled, they should still be working. Now, the counter to that I see is, okay, if you take a disabled person, what is the likelihood that they will injure themselves further? What is the likelihood that they will break the machine as a result of not operating it properly? And then you start to get into the insurance factors of, at what point do we not allow this person to do that job because they could become worse for them and worse for the company? So those are kind of the balancing point issues that you have to go through. But from their point, the super wealthy, they look at the disabled and they go, well, I just came back from, Taiwan, and in Taiwan, many of the people on this particular, machine that were producing this product had some sort of impairment, but they were still working. It was an interesting conversation. I mean, remember, this is just the summary. This is like what it boiled down to. Number 6, while the disabled are a constant source of low-level purchasers, they don't support multiple or other industries. They buy car parts and they don't buy mechanics in the sense of getting a mechanic to fix their car. So the idea is they buy off-brand products and not label names. They buy bulk and spread it past the label date. Very few companies have access to these particular types of products. So, for example, like the Waltons, Walmart would have access to selling items very cheap below normal price that are off-label for Walmart. The government subsidizes, in some respects, Walmart and other low-cost stores by providing the willing purchasers. Most wealthy people don't have an in on this super, base market. And so a lot of super wealthy are actually not happy because, these marketplaces have already been sucked up when it comes to getting essentially all those government dollars. And a lot of people who are disabled don't realize, but that's what it is. Those dollars that you're getting, even if you paid in or you didn't, and you're just on SSI, those are subsidized government dollars. The whole point of that is the government either gives you or gives back to you the money that you gave to them. And then as a result of that, you spend it on items. But not all wealthy people can get into that base market. And once again, they're not happy because the base market doesn't have a lot of markup. These are reasons that you're going to see some angst, some hatred on behalf of the wealthy against those who are disabled. Because not only are the disabled in almost all instances in a poverty class, which, it's a whole nother video with the wealthy, but they're also essentially a group of people who are given a pass to not have to work in this country or have to work as much in this country. So it was a really interesting conversation. I don't think a lot of people think about this stuff. And that's one of the cool things about this channel, is that other channels will literally grab portions of whatever the readout script from this video was, and they'll integrate it into their videos. And so I thought that was, I like it and I don't like it. I prefer it when they switch up some of the things I've said or add something new. But, bottom line is, it is what it is. The point here is this. I think that one of the things America has not focused on when it comes to the disabled is how to reframe how the public examines them. Now, Hollywood tried to integrate some disabled into movies, do some things here and there, etc. But America has never really taken a spotlight to explain why disabled are so important. I'll give you a classic example. A classic example of this would be, they've done trailers and videos and exciting things and parades for veterans and for military personnel. But you're not going to see the same thing for the disabled. You're not going to see the same reaching out for those who are just disabled without a military, attachment. Now, you will see essentially the SSA now advertising on the radio, putting up some billboards here and there, etc., to try and sell people onto this idea of converting over to their online My Social Security account. But still, the sale, right? The heavy sales of changing the perception of who disabled are, it's just not much of that. You might see some nonprofits pushing it, but you just don't see that in the modern market. Now, I realize that some people, let's see, are going to have some really saucy comments on this. Let's see. So anyways, here's kind of the bottom line. I'm going to be going to the next video. The next video is one I've been wanting to do for a while. I just haven't had a chance to do it. It's actually 3 times where I faced some really bad situations, like, a knife, guns, things like that, while doing my job as a disability attorney. And we're going to go through, I can't use the judges' names where these things happen, or specific locations of where they happen, but I can tell you like street names, or, if it was like Orlando or whatever. Or which hearing office it was, but I can't use specific names in it. So I'm going to be back in about 5 minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and basically go through the 3 times I literally almost died doing the job of being a disability attorney for the homeless. So I will see you guys pretty soon, and we'll go from there. But please remember, 5 minutes, I'll be right back, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks so much. All right, bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.